Hello everyone, it's Rasa von Werder from the University of Mother God Church. I have a great article to read. I've gotten William Bond stimulated again to get back into the race, the gender war of patriarchy versus matriarchy. Patriarchy attacked us. We were once in charge. The world was matriarchal up until they started coming down from the Mongolian area. That's one of my ancestors is from Mongolia. The Mongolian area, they came down from the mountains and began attacking agrarian villages. That's about 10,000, 8, 9,000, many years ago. So patriarchy has been beginning, just the vestigial beginning started like about 10,000 years ago, got stronger about 7,000 years ago, and it's been fairly entrenched in the last 5,000 years, 3,000 years more so, since the early Greek. We hear a lot about the early Greek and Roman days, and that's when it was really cemented in on our planet by about like 3,000, 2,000 years ago. And but for all the history prior to that, they worshipped a mother god, and women were in charge. Men were not in charge. So they attacked us in the gender war, and we are fighting back. So I am going to read this article. I love the title. He made it facetiously for me. Why Are Men Evil? This is by William Bond, a genius of matriarchy, who is, I call him the right hand of Mother God and the prophet of matriarchy, because he's one of the first people to really, in our modern day, to preach women ruling the world and matriarchy. Okay, here we go. There is a case for claiming that most of the evil of the world comes from men. After all, it is men who mostly fight wars, commit genocide as well as rape and murder. It is true that individual women also do all these things, but for women it is unusual, whereas for men it is commonplace. According to a study done by the Stockholm University, the difference in domestic violence between men and women is about 9 to 1. 9 men commit violence on women compared to just 1 violent woman. But the figures will be higher when talking about genocide and war. You can name a few women who fought in wars, but nothing compared with the millions of men who killed other people in combat and genocide. The same is true of serial killers. So why is there such a big difference in the sexes? To understand this, we have to look at nature. When we study animals similar to humans, what we find is that male animals fight and compete with each other for dominance and access to females. In contrast to females who rarely fight each other and devote their time in caring for their offspring. So we see that male animals are focused on aggression, competition, and fighting, whereas female animals are mostly focused on loving, caring, and nurturing their young, and the same is also true of human beings. As children, boys like to play with toy guns while girls like to play with dolls. Feminist mothers have tried to challenge these stereotypes, claiming it was caused by cultural conditioning, but their attempts to change this in their children have failed. In spite of the efforts of feminist mothers, they found that boys still like fighting and competing against each other, as well as enjoying violent films and video games, whereas girls still like to play with dolls and love cute animals. So if that is the case, will we always live in a world of war and violence? It would be true if the world continues to be ruled by men. Unlike most other animals who are dominated by their instincts, we can choose to change our world if we want to. In sociology, there is a big debate on people's behavior about how much does culture, conditioning influence our behavior. As it is very clear that we are all strongly influenced by the culture we live in, but this is not the full story. We are also influenced strongly by our basic instincts. So in the nature versus nurture debate, both positions are true. Yes, it is true that men's basic instincts drive them to be aggressive, competitive, and even violent. But the degree men are like this is dictated by culture conditioning. The military discovered this thousands of years ago. In spite of what people might read about military history, it is not natural for men to want to kill other people. This has caused a big problem for any military commander because soldiers who are adverse to killing other people are useless in battle. There have been many cases in military history where small armies of men have defeated armies that were far larger. The reason for this is that a small army of psychopaths who are so brutalized that they can kill without qualms will easily defeat a far larger army of ordinary men who do not wish to harm or kill another human being. Now, William likes when I comment on his stuff. So, notice what he said now. A small army of psychopaths against a large army of those who don't want to kill and harm other human beings, the psychopaths will win. Now, that's the gender war. It's the psychopaths, the males, the evil males, the demonic males, against the women who care and love, against women who want to take care of life. They want to nurture life. They want to give life. Women don't want to give birth to people and then kill people. That's not their nature, is it? So these small bands of psychopaths coming from the mountains in Mongolia down into the villages, peaceful villages, agricultural villages, began to attack. That's why they won, because a small army of, you're going to get 5 killers and 50 good, kind, loving people, but 5 killers who will do anything to win, and they have weapons. They could surprise attack the 50 people and win. It is possible. I mean, they have done that. Men have done that. Remember the guy who killed 30 nurses? This was years and years ago. I was real young when this happened. His name was Speck or Spack or something. And he broke into a nurse's dormitories, and he held them at abeyance. And most of them were silly. They were scared. Just one lousy guy, one dirty, lousy guy, one psychopath or sociopath. And I think he ended up murdering 28 of them. They could have banded against him and won, but they didn't. They were under the fallacy and delusion that he just wanted sex. Women have, I think, wised up since those days. This was, I believe, in the 60s. I would have to look it up to get the details. But this, anyone my age, 65 or older, might remember that. Soldiers who have to be conditioned or trained, they have to be conditioned and trained to be killers, he says. The trouble with this is that soldiers conditioned to be like this will not only kill other soldiers, but can go on to kill women. Isn't that true? And children. Yes, they have become, this is me again, men have completely run amuck. And again, I am not suggesting 100% of men, but I go by the principle of the 33 1/3%. The 1/3 of the angels from heaven followed Lucifer, Satan, into hell. And I believe that myth is telling us that 1/3 of the men became demonic in following patriarchy. And the 2/3 of men are the victims of these monsters, the same as women and children are. They are victims when they're children, and they are victims as adults. To be continued.